I made it clear what the president's position is on that issue. I've answered the question over and over again the same way. Yeah, I've answered that several times. That's his position. He said that he has nothing further to add.
Of course, is White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer not answering questions or very curtly not answering questions about the possibility that the president tapes private conversations at the White House. A possibility, remember, that the president first raised himself with the breaking news today about the president's Oval Office meeting with Russian officials and what he may have disclosed during that meeting. Democratic Congressman Elijah Cummings and John Conyers, they are now saying that if any audio exists from Trump's Oval Office meeting with those Russian diplomats, hand it over. Joining me now is John Dean. He's a former White House counsel to President Nixon, a central figure in the Watergate scandal. He is now a CNN contributor. Great to see you, John. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning.
So if tapes were important last week over Donald Trump's conversations with James Comey, how important is it now that Congress get its hands on any tapes, if they exist, from the Oval Office following this Russia meeting?
Well, we don't have any idea of what kind of taping might or might not be undertaken by Mr. Trump. We know he has a history of doing this when he was in business. I do know his telephones, it's a very simple switch. These are internet-based telephones, and they're digital now, and so they're just a switch you hit, and you can record phone calls. Whether they're getting the room in totality or not and have wired that, I have no idea. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out on this.
And a lot of folks will remember that following Nixon, it became a lot easier, a lot more clear for Congress and the public to gain access to any tapes coming from the White House if they exist. But here's my question. First and foremost, does the White House have a legal responsibility to confirm or deny if tapes exist?
I don't think they have a responsibility to admit or not admit. They might get confronted with a subpoena at some point.
Yeah.
Now, the law is not quite so clear on Congress. When Nixon was sued for his tapes, it was by a grand jury and by a prosecutor, and the Supreme Court ruled on that. The Supreme Court's never ruled on whether Congress has that same power to reach in and get a president's recordings. So that they'll have to barter for them more likely than subpoena them.
Yeah. Bartering for them, I would love to see how that's going to go down. On the news today, John, you have a national security advisor out last night with a carefully worded statement trying to deny the reporting, though not really addressing the main substance of the reporting. What then effect does the president's words this morning have on this whole episode when he says that as president, I wanted to share this information with Russia and I have the absolute right to do so?
Well, he does have the absolute right. The entire classification system originates from the president. While Congress has adopted some statutes to protect it, he really does control it. And it is the ultimate authority in the executive branch. It comes out of his executive powers under the Constitution. So he appears to me to have thrown his national security advisor under the bus. I don't know what the National Security Advisor is going to say when he crawls out from under the bus this morning, because he's been totally undercut. So this is just this confusing chaos that from day to day this administration doesn't seem to be able to get any process where they're consistent.
Well, as former White House counsel under Nixon, what advice would you give to H.R. McMaster right now?
I think he's a very truthful man, and he has a reputation of that, and he's just got to keep calling it the way he may well have just gone around the edge, and he and Trump may not be at that great of odds. So he'll have to parse it again this morning is what's going to happen.
Threading the needle, walking a fine line, whichever metaphor you want to use today. We will watch it play out on live TV. John Dean, always great to have your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Coming up for us, two events.